If you're an author or plan to be one, get excited because this podcast is for you. Book Marketing Mentors is the only podcast dedicated to helping you successfully market and sell your book. If you're ready for empowering conversations with successful marketing mavens, then grab a coffee or tea and listen in to your host, international best-selling author Susan Friedman.
Before I introduce you to today's guest expert, I have some exciting news to share. At long last, the Book Marketing Mentors Premium membership is a reality. This is a brand new membership site that's going to give you even more tips, techniques, and insider secrets from the experts. When you become a premium member, you're going to enjoy even more valuable ways to use your book to make money and thrive as a trusted expert authority in your field. As a premium subscriber, you'll get exclusive access to even more of my book and author marketing proven strategies, tools, ideas, and tips to help you market and sell more books. You'll get monthly exclusive deep dive discussions with some of the best guests I interview on the Book Marketing Mentors podcast. And then finally, how would you like me to interview you? Every month, I'll feature an interview with a nonfiction author, and you've got an opportunity to be chosen as one of those guests. Check the show notes for a link and join the Book Marketing Mentors Premium membership today so that you can also take advantage of the special introductory price. Now let's get on with the show so that you can meet this week's guest, expert, and mentor. Welcome to Book Marketing Mentors, the weekly podcast where you learn proven strategies, tools, ideas, and tips from the masters. Every week, I introduce you to a marketing master who will share their expertise to help you market and sell more books. Today, my special guest is Leanne Marie Webster. Leanne is the creator of Email with Heart and Lead Machine Weekend. She helps entrepreneurs build, grow, and nurture their email lists without being sleazy or cheesy. She's an inspirational speaker, lawyer, coach, and entrepreneur with 20 years experience in marketing and business development in a whole range of different industries. A dear friend and colleague, Leanne, what an absolute pleasure it is to welcome you to the show. And thank you for being this week's guest expert and mentor.
My pleasure, Susan. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
So, Leanne, email's been around for a while, and now we've got so much going on in our inbox and then with social media and one thing and another. And the question that I'm sure is on so many people's minds, and I know it's on mine, and that is, how relevant is email today? Are people actually opening emails?
That's an awesome question. I get to ask that question a lot, as I'm sure you can imagine. And here's the way I always like to answer it. I want you to just think about your email box, your inbox, which if you're like me, first of all, I have multiple inboxes. Secondly, they're full. And there are still messages that you open and read regularly that aren't from a client, and that aren't like, your Amazon order confirmation or some other quote unquote necessary message. But there's other messages that you open and read regularly. If you think about why you do that, you'll understand that email is still really powerful. It's just most people aren't using it in the most powerful way.
You say that, and of course that begs the question, what is the most powerful way to use our email?
There's a number of ways. And one of the reasons I created Email with Heart is it's my signature system, but it also is my kind of a statement of my point of view. And my real goal is to get people to change their perception around email and also change how they use it. Because I feel like in the past, well, not in the past, current day, a lot of people teach the strategy to build your list as big as possible through any means possible, and then pummel people with messages until they break down and buy. That's the kind of old school way. And what I really want people to embrace is a new and different way to think about email.
That's so true, because I know that's been the case with so many people, that they have these huge lists, or they want to grow lists because they don't believe that they can sell anything without having a massive list.
Yeah.
So I know that your heart in your email with heart is actually, it stands for something.
Yes.
So it's an acronym. Talk to us about what the HEART actually stands for.
Sure. The H in heart is for how people get on your list. I used to not think I needed to talk about this, but then I realized I really did. A lot of times people are using those kind of, I will call them sloppy practices for adding people to their list. And again, it comes from that, what has been taught by many, which is build the list as big as possible through any means possible. That often turns into scraping contacts from LinkedIn, or when you meet someone at a networking event, taking their business card, adding that email to their list. Or I literally this week just had somebody take my email from a calendar invite that a third person sent. They scraped my email from that calendar invite and added me to their email list. What happens with that is we all know that phrase that we buy from those we know, like, and trust. And when folks are doing that, you know them, but you don't like them or trust them. And that means you don't want to buy from them.
That's a really important thing for people to realize, that you don't go and take emails without somebody's confirmation and approval that it's okay to put them on the list. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right. And what I hear sometimes is people saying, well, Leanne, they can unsubscribe, or, what's the big deal? And again, that big deal is the know, like, and trust factor, because you don't want a list of just random people who may or may not be interested. What you really, really, really want is a list of people who like you and can't wait to open that email and can't wait to hear what you have to say and can't wait to buy from you. And they want to build that relationship with you.
You just said something really important, and that is they want to open the email for you.
Yes.
That also begs the question, how do we do that?
Well, luckily, I've got a structure for that.
Why am I not surprised?
Actually, the E in heart speaks to engaging content, which is one of the fundamentals for getting people to open that email list, or that email when it comes into the inbox. Part of it is that permissive idea from the how, and then part of it is keeping them engaged. And I always say, so often when people are writing their emails, they are thinking in terms of what their goal is, right? I want someone to buy my program. I want someone to sign up for a strategy session with me. I want someone to do X, Y, Z. Unfortunately, it often doesn't take into account why the person would want to do that. It's too based on the sender and not based enough on the receiver. A key aspect of engaging content is to put yourself in the shoes of the receiver and say, why would they care to buy my product? Why would they benefit from having a strategy session with me? And just shifting that focus helps you develop content that is way more engaging and does get people to want to actually open the email.
Yes, it's so hard sometimes, because we don't even realize half the time that we're very self-centered about everything that we put up there, whether it's on our website, or, you said, like in an email message, it's I versus you. Is that correct?
That's exactly it. And thinking in terms of really connecting the dots. I work with clients on this a lot, that because we know, for example, why would we want to publish with you? We know that as the content creator. I know why someone would want to attend my lead machine weekend. Like, I know the benefits. And we don't often express those well to the audience. And so what I find is we really need to connect the dots. If you have X problem, here's how you can solve problem with Y. And here's how I can help you with Z. Like, it's really step by step by step connecting those dots.
That in and of itself sounds like a process. And I'm assuming that during your lead machine weekend, you help your clients go through that and really fully put together a process whereby they are coming from being reader-centric rather than self-centered.
Exactly. Yes, I do it in my lead machine weekend. And also I have an ongoing program called Email with Heart Huddle. And it's where we literally huddle up once a month and we look at what's driving results and how we can draft our emails in a way that will connect with our audience more deeply and grow the business. I mean, nothing wrong with wanting to grow your business and sell your online course and get strategy sessions. Those are all fantastic objectives. And it's the way in which you go about them that often creates the problem.
We've covered the H, we've covered the E. How about the A in heart?
The A is for being your authentic self. I always bring this up because I find that oftentimes we have this idea in our head about what a marketing strategist should sound like, what an author marketer should sound like. And I think this comes from my days as an attorney. There was like this role that I played. And what I found is the more I am myself, so the more I'm expressing in a way that truly is my personality and that truly it's just me. The more I'm me, then the more I draw in those clients who like me for who I am and like working with me, and we have similar personalities, and the whole working relationship is just much more fulfilling and fun than when I'm kind of doing the role of the serious entrepreneur with a serious message to say.
Yeah, and I mean, I think more and more that whole idea of being authentic now, I mean, that's very much what people are looking for because, as we know, there are a lot of shysters out there and people who are out. I had somebody on the line the other day who was bemoaning the fact that a publisher had taken them for a real ride and it was a very expensive ride, and they come crying to me about it. And obviously, I can't do anything about the past. I can do something about the present and potentially the future. But it makes me cry too that people are doing this and that it gives everybody a bad reputation. So the more authentic you can be, the better.
Absolutely. And it's just, like I said, it also draws in those clients that are way more fun to work with. I'm a little bit of a goober. I'm a little bit of a dork. You know me. And what I found is the more I just let my little goofy flag fly, the more I draw in people who at least appreciate that. They don't have to be goofy like me, but at least they appreciate that. And that means that I'm not trying to put on a facade or trying to step into the shoes of something that I'm not when I'm with them. And that lets me access a lot more creativity, a lot more insights, and just do a lot better job with them.
It's so interesting as I look back on my career and how many times I've tried to be somebody else. And I always remember I was saying to one of my speaker colleagues, oh, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. I was like, no, I don't. You know, when I think of it now, I'm like, no, I need to be me and, you know, the me that is. And whether you like me as I am, well, that's what's either going to attract you or repel you. I don't know. I mean, everybody takes to different people differently, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, we can't all be the same, and nor should we, and nor should we try and be somebody that we're not.
Exactly.
Okay, we're on to the R. We're moving right along here.
Moving right along. So the R in heart is for rhythm. And this speaks to how often you're going to message your list. I get this question a lot. How often should I email? And is there a special day or time? Which I can get to that in a minute. But the key with rhythm is to pick your interval and then stick with it. And it should be at least twice a month. I say that because sometimes people, especially when they're just starting out, and this is a beautiful place to come from, they don't want to bug people. So they'll just message once a month. And the challenge with once a month is there's too much space that occurs between the messages. People will forget who you are sometimes in between, and then that will make your unsubscribe rate go up.
Of course, then you say at minimum twice a month, but is there an optimum time? Optimum number, rather, because I do go through that where I'm like frightened that I'm overburdening my list if I send something out. Let's say I was helping somebody promote an event or I'm promoting an event. It's like, well, how many is the right number?
Well, part of that can get driven by your audience. I like to say this is the intersection of how often you like to write and then how often they want to hear from you. I do like weekly, and I think weekly is a good interval to be in. Weekly is still only 56 messages a year. And then if you're consistent with your weekly, you can miss a week every now and then, and it's no big deal. It won't impact your consistency that much because you'll have enough other messages coming. With that, you can, if you're consistent, you can increase it at times for special promotions. For example, if I'm promoting an event for someone else, or if I'm promoting my own event, sometimes I'll do free virtual trainings and I'll send a couple extra messages around that. And what I found is I can get away with that in the sense of I'm not upsetting my list too much if I do it sparingly. So I only do that a couple times a year. And this is key and it goes right back to that engaging content. I make sure that even when I'm promoting, that there's something of value in the message, even when it's a promotion.
That's important, that
Yeah.
there's something of value. So let's go down that little rabbit hole and talk to us more about that. If you're promoting an event, be it for yourself or be it for somebody else, what would that look like?
Let's say, for example, I was promoting my lead machine weekend. And my lead machine weekend is where we create a lead magnet, which, by the way, circling back to the H, the way to get people on your list permissively is to offer free content, some sort of content in exchange for an email. And the jargony term for that is lead magnet. In my weekend, I help you create a lead magnet and then all the technology with it. When I promote that, the content piece of it is where I say, hey, if you're a speaker and you are in front of an audience, you need to have a way in order to grab the email addresses of the audience, of the people who are interested in continuing to work for you. So that identifies an issue for them. And then I'll say, here's a couple of different ways to do it. And this is the tip, try join by text or do X or do Y or do Z. I'll give a couple of different methods for doing it. Most of the methods are centered around this piece of content called a lead magnet. I'll say, here's the different ways. And by the way, in order to do the strategy, you will need a lead magnet. Here's what a lead magnet is. Oh, if you don't have a lead magnet, here's my weekend that helps you do it. So if they're interested in attending Lead Machine Weekend, that's great. I've just laid out why they need to attend, connected those dots for them. But if they're not interested, they've at least understand now, hey, wow, if I'm speaking, I need to make sure I can get the email addresses, and here's some ways that I can do it. So they get value just from that message.
Lead magnets. Thank you for explaining that, because I never want to assume that our listeners know what that is, because it's known by many different terms. What kinds of pieces of information make for a good lead magnet?
It's interesting, since your audience, I know, are authors, they've got a whole book's worth of content that they can cut up, slice and dice. It really can be anything. I love audios or videos. Podcast episodes can be a lead magnet, right? If there's exercises in your book, you could create something around that, a checklist, a template, a worksheet. You could do an excerpt from the book. Thinking in terms of what is that kind of, if you're a foodie, what's the amuse-bouche? What's the little taster thing that will start people on the journey with me, but also give them value? And again, it circles back to giving them value.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's always giving that value and thinking about, well, what would be useful and important to the reader, to the recipient. Yeah. Always thinking in those terms. Excellent. Mm-hmm. I think we've made it to T. What does the T in heart stand for?
The T is for technology. There's a couple of different aspects to this. One is the platform that you're using, which that's really more of a discussion that we won't go down that rabbit hole, because there's some specifics in there. The other key, though, are some metrics to watch, or some numbers to watch. And there's 3 numbers I like for myself and my clients to pay attention to. And they are your open rate, your click-through rate, and your unsubscribe rate.
You can get all of that through your provider, I would assume. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can log into the dashboard of your email service provider. For every message you send, you should be able to view those metrics. Mm-hmm.
Are there some metrics that Should you have a 50% open rate, a 20%? What's considered acceptable?
Yeah, that's a great question. The average open rate is 12 to 15%. That's lower than what a lot of people expect. I like to keep myself and my clients at least at 20% or higher. The thing with the open rate, it's interesting because some people think it doesn't matter if they have this like large list. This kind of goes back to the how, right? If they have this large list and only 20% of the people are opening. But here's the thing, if you let those other 80% sit idle for too long, it actually hurts your deliverability. Deliverability meaning the number of emails that actually get into the inboxes of your folks. If you're not paying attention to how people get on your list and you have those people who maybe didn't want to be on the list and so they just kind of let it slide. They never unsubscribe, but they also don't open. If they ride for too long, it'll end up harming you in the sense of getting to the people who do want your content. That's another reason for being diligent about how people get on your list, is making sure that the people who are receiving it really want it. And the open rate can help you with judging that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I always think too, I don't worry about the unsubscribe, because if somebody doesn't want to hear from me, I'd much rather they got off my list than
Yes.
stayed on it and didn't open it, or it landed up in spam or whatever.
Absolutely.
I'd much rather that they unsubscribe or say to me, please take me off your list. It happens.
It
And,
happens. And it's okay.
sometimes it serves a purpose that they connect with you. And then once that purpose is filled, they're moving on and they don't necessarily need your messages anymore. So, which I can't imagine why they wouldn't, but.
Well, I'm with you on that, sister. You're putting out some great content.
I think so. But at the end of the day, it's the listener who needs to make that decision.
That's right.
So, yes. Yeah. With a podcast. And I mean, I want it to be relevant to our listeners. But if it isn't, hey, if they've got other interests, then that's totally okay as well. So just go through the different components of heart again. The H is for how people get on your list. Making sure it's permissive. The E is engaging content. Yes. And the A?
The A is authentic voice.
R
is for rhythm.
And the T
is for technology.
Wonderful. That's a great little acronym, and I know it serves you well. One of the things, Leanne, that I know our listeners love learning from is mistakes. What are some of the common mistakes that you find people make when it comes to email? And I know we've talked about a few, even though we haven't said exactly that they were mistakes, but what else?
A couple of key mistakes I see people making are within that rhythm idea. And one is they do what I call ghosting their list. That's when you sign up for somebody's email list, they might even have a lead magnet. You sign up for that piece of content, and then you might get one message or something, but then you just don't hear from them again, or it's 6 months before you hear from them. And we experienced this, almost all of us experienced this back in 2020 when COVID hit. All of a sudden, a lot of us got emails from places and we were like, I was on your list. Remember that? It was like, what happened? I bought tickets from you 6 years ago. You still have my email. So the ghosting, because it's not building the relationship.
You always want to look for ways in which you can build that relationship and not let it slide. And I know that I've been guilty of that with some people. So yeah, that's a really important one. What else?
The other one I see is also happens to be in the rhythm category, and it's doing what I call booty calling your list. This is when you only email when you need something. I see this a lot with people that suddenly they've got a digital course. All of a sudden they're emailing me 1,000,000 times about it, or they've got a retreat coming up, or they've got something that they want to sell. And then all of a sudden they start emailing me a lot about it. And it's like, again, it's okay. It's perfectly fine. And I recommend it, selling to your list, but build the relationship first so that you have the right to ask them to buy something from you.
And that's a really important one. And I know I've had those boutique emails. I love that name. Leanne, I know that our listeners would love to learn more about your services. How can they do that?
The easiest way is to go to emailwithheart.com, just the way it sounds, emailwithheart, HEART.com. And that will take you a couple places. First, to my lead magnet. Of course, I've got a lead magnet. And
Practice what you preach.
That's right. It's my Email with Heart assessment. And it's basically a 32-point assessment where you can walk through, have very specific things to see if you're doing with your email list. And it'll give you an idea of where you can use some brushing up. And it'll give you some very specific things to do to up your score with it. Of course, then you'll be on my email list. So then you'll also get an example of what not ghosting looks like and what engaging content looks like, hopefully, if I'm doing my job right.
Yes. I mean, you're your own model. So if you're not modeling your method, good. Yes, we're going to learn from that. So yes, listeners, email with heart and get Leanne's email assessment. And Leanne, if you were to leave our listeners with a golden nugget, what would that be?
The way I like to think about this, all this email is, I call it honoring the inbox. And it's really that idea of, that is sacred space, the inbox. It's an invitation into a sacred space for someone. And so it's just thinking with everything you do around your email marketing, how can you make sure that you're honoring the inbox with everything you do?
Beautiful. Honor the inbox. It's a sacred space. That is beautiful. Leanne, thank you for sharing your wisdom so generously. There's so much packed in this. Listeners, you're going to have to listen to this a few times because there was so much that Leanne shared, such great information. Thank you. And thank you all so much for taking time out of your precious day to listen to this interview. And I sincerely hope that it sparked some ideas you can use to sell more books. Here's wishing you much book and author marketing success.
The time is now to take action and finally build your book-selling empire. And the great news is that Susan is here to help you. Visit bookmarketingmentors.com and sign up for a free 15-minute book marketing strategy session with Susan. She'll help you discover your first steps to marketing and selling your book. Only those who take action are rewarded, so visit bookmarketingmentors.com, and we'll see you again next week.